Hi everyone, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here, and welcome to my end of June wrap up. If you're interested and haven't seen my mid-month wrap up, I will leave that in a card and link down below for you so you can see all the books that I read the first half of the month. But today we're here to talk about the books that I read in the second half of the month. So here we go. June has been my best reading month to date this year so far. Right now I'm sitting at 17 books for the month, and that is an accomplishment for me. Like I am just like, I don't know how you did it. I don't know what's going on, but you did it. Pretty quality reads as well. So today I will be talking about 8 books. Now, that being said, I am doing this a few days earlier than I typically would because I'm going to be traveling this weekend and next weekend, so I'm trying to film a few videos for you guys. So I have 17 books now. I may or may not finish another book before the end of the month. If that is the case, and if I talk about it, then I'll probably do so over on my Instagram. So shameless plug, if you're not already following me on Instagram, why not? Go ahead and do so. I am just the same as on YouTube, Bookmarked by Jen. I'll leave that linked down below for you as well. But again, if I talk about it, then it'll probably be over there. So I'm going to quit talking and we'll talk about the 8 books that, that's what you're here for. So let's go. First up, I had QB Tyler's newest release, which was Keep Her Safe. My girl. I mean, she is an auto-buy author for me. She is one of my favorites. She is the taboo queen. I absolutely love her, and I absolutely love her writing. This is a dual POV. It's a bodyguard romance. It's an interracial relationship. There's an age gap. Our hero is fiercely protective of our heroine and very possessive, and I was just completely here for it the entire time. This follows Damien and Shay. Damien is the head of security for Shay, who is a child star turned A-list celebrity. She's like everybody's go-to. She is Hollywood's it girl. And she's always had a crush or a very intense attraction to Damien, even going so far as to kind of throw herself at him. And Damien put a stop to that because his job is first and foremost, and he needs to be able to protect her. And how can he do that if they're in a relationship? But he sees her as well, and it is really hard for him when he wants to be with the person that he's supposed to be protecting the most. So that cross between lovers and business, like it was really interesting to watch that line being towed and watch that dynamic. But I mean, it's all there, guys. The yumminess, the angst, a little bit of slow burn, but the spice is only as QB could do it. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. Was it my favorite QB book? No. That is a tie between Love Unexpected and What Was Meant to Be, my man JP. If you're looking for the taboo, if you're looking for the spice, if you're looking for the yummy banter and the dirty talk and just everything that she can only bring, it's a good time. I couldn't put it down. I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars for spice. Next up, I read Pen Pal by J.T. Geissinger. This is all told in the point of view of Kayla. Honestly, guys, it was chock full of delicious spice, but ultimately, this book was just not for me. If you've read it, you understand, and it's not specifically because of that. It just, I kind of saw where it was going because certain things just were not adding up, and for them to add up, it could only mean one thing. Definitely didn't expect some of the things that happened, so there was like a little bit of surprise and like an oh shit moment for sure. And even though the story was told really well, I was really interested in what was happening, the flow, how everything was going to come about. It just fell flat for me. It could be because of what happens, but it was good, but it just wasn't for me. It follows Kayla. She just lost her husband. She comes home from the funeral. She finds a letter from the state penitentiary from somebody she doesn't know who says that he's going to wait forever. She writes him back, says, dude, you got the wrong person. He writes back and says, nah, bitch, I'm talking about you. I know you. I know all these things about you, and I'm here for you. And so there's that. Also, she's dealing with the fact that her and her husband bought this home, And it is a bit of a fixer-upper, so things start going wrong, and she hires this handyman to come in and help her. This is Aiden, and that's where all the spicy deliciousness comes in. She starts to have a relationship with Aiden while she's dealing with the grief of losing her husband, and also dealing with this mystery pen pal who claims to know her, but she has no idea who he is. So there you go. I gave it a 3.5 stars, and I gave it a 3 stars for spice. My next book was What We Broke by Marley Valentine. This is a new release. It just came out on June 1st. It is a dual POV, a second chance romance. It does deal with trauma and grief and a little bit of mental health as well. Check trigger warnings. Check trigger warnings. There is a tragic event that happens at the very start of this book, like page 1, and it can be a little traumatizing to read. So if you need to, check the triggers. This also is an MM romance as well. It follows Leo and Jesse. Leo and Jesse met and fell in love almost instantly. Well, Jesse sees Leo at a club and like immediately is like, this is my man. Like, this is my guy. We're gonna be together. There's something about him. It was like an instant. It was instant. And they have a really cute meet cute, but we don't find that out until a little bit later in the book, because when you open the book, you're immediately right into the tragedy that befalls these two. And it is extremely heart-wrenching and heartbreaking, so be warned. But you're in it with them. You're dealing with what they're dealing with, and you see where they're at right now. And then we do jump from past and present, and I really appreciated this because we are shown where they're at right as we open the book, but then you're able to see their meet cute and how their relationship was prior to this horrific incident that happens, and to see really the downfall that takes place. And they're in this position where they're really about to get a divorce. Leo is dealing with the grief a completely different way, has completely shut down. I think when the tragedy happens, we jump forward to the present, which is about a year later, and so we are seeing the after effects of this. We go back into the past, and Jesse is just really trying to get back to their relationship. He's trying to reach out to Leo, who is completely just shut down, and it is their journey back to each other, the struggles that they go through, how people deal with grief differently. I really liked and I appreciated the mental health rep. To see two people cope with something like this completely differently, and then to actually seek help. They go to couples therapy. Leo goes to a different therapy as well for grief counseling. So you're not just talking about a grief and then, oh, we're completely fine. So I absolutely loved that part of it. I also really loved the found family dynamic. Jesse has a best friend, and they end up having sex for the first time when they're about 16, and they get pregnant. So him and his best friend, they have a daughter together, and Leo comes into that, completely makes Jesse's daughter his daughter, creates a really great friendship with the mom as well. I can't remember her name, my apologies, but it was a really great book. It was really emotional. I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. I gave it a 2 stars for spice. All right, so I'm going to talk about my next 3 books together because they are part of an interconnected series. This is book 3, 4, and 5 of the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altaj, a mafia romance series that has like really been hyped up and taken over lately, and for good reason. I read the first book early on in the year. It was a recommendation by one of you guys, and I've been slowly reading them, but no more. Like, they're just so good. I love this world, so I just decided to do them all together. There are actually 6 books right now. The 7th book is coming out at the end of July, and I wanted to wait to read the 6th book so I could kind of piggyback that with the 7th book, so I could like kind of stay in that world. I don't know. It's just what I did. But we are going to talk about books 3, 4, and 5 right now. They are all dual POV. They are all an age gap. They're all a mafia romance. They all have kind of a scarred, unlovable hero and a very strong, badass heroine, which I love. I love me some strong ass heroines. So book 3, this is Hidden Truths. This is kind of like a captor captive. It's a he falls first. This follows Sergey and Angelina. We have seen Sergey before in the first 2 books. He is like the enforcer for Roman and the Bratva. He is that like reclusive, kind of unhinged because of what he's dealt with in his past. When he was really young, he lost his mom and then was put into the foster care system, and the government got to him when he was about 13 or 14, and he became part of this like black ops group that basically was sent out to assassinate, and he was really good at it, but he is more of the protective type instead of a dominating enforcer type, so he deals with that trauma a little bit differently and becomes almost like broken from reality. So at the beginning of the book, Roman sends him to stop a drug shipment that's coming in from Mexico, from the Mexican cartel, but was also told that there is going to be a girl that's riding with the drugs to make sure that she's out and then get rid of the shipment as part of like a statement. So that's what he does, except he sees Angelina, who has been dehydrated and is basically like knocking on death's door, and he becomes her protector and takes her for himself and is basically like, I'm gonna nurse you back to health, but I'm also gonna keep you. So there's that. And what he doesn't know quite yet, but he does figure out, is that Angelina is a part of the Mexican cartel. Her father was one of the heads of the Mexican cartel. It's like there's like a few different cartels down in Mexico. Her father being one of them. He was murdered by another head of the cartel, and he was forcing her to marry him, so she fled, and that's how she ends up with Sergey. Angelina is pretty wary of Sergey at first, but they do form a pretty quick connection. These are all really short books, guys, so things happen pretty quickly in this book. They do get together pretty quickly. There is a little bit of an insta-love factor to it, but everything is written so well that it's amazing. The spice was spicy. I always want more of that. Neva Altaj does this so well. The world, but like everything is just so good. I'm obsessed with this series. I ended up giving Hidden Truths a 4.5, and I gave it a 3 stars for spice, which brings us to book 4, which is Ruined Secrets. This is an arranged marriage. It follows Luca and Isabella. She is 19, he is 35. Isabella has been in love with Luca since she was about 6 years old when he jumped into a pool and saved her life. She's watched him over the years, was completely devastated when he was married because she wanted him for herself, but now her grandfather is on his deathbed. He is the Don of the Chicago Cosa Nostra, so we are out of Roman's world for a second and put into the Cosa Nostra. The Don wants Isabella to marry Luca because he is now divorced from his wife, and Isabella is absolutely over the moon. Luca, not so much. Luca is basically like, what the hell am I going to do with a child? Like, she's closer in age to my kid than she is to me. What am I going to do? But Isabella is not going to take that line down. She is a little minx. She's a little sex kitten. And she entices Luca as best she can with her body, with a little bit of self-love at night, making him watch, wanting him to touch her, and he is really hard-pressed to fall for this. And then a little twist happens, and it's just, this one was on its way to being like one of my favorites of the series. However, I had to take off a half a point here because there was something that like really irritated me. And like I said, these really aren't big books, but this book and the next book, so books 5 and 6, were really dense. Like, there was a lot of information and there was a lot of story packed into such a small book. They felt longer than they were, and that is not a bad thing. It was absolutely amazing. That being said, there is this thing with Isabella where she likes to be penetrative all hours of the day. Like, doesn't want to not be penetrated. First, it's talked about a lot towards the end of the book, and for me, it was a little bit overkill. I get it. I get what you want, like, but like, do we need to talk about it consistently like this? Because it's a little bit annoying. But also, I was sitting here thinking, like, girl, Mother Nature didn't ask for this. Like, she didn't want this. That's why we only have like our periods, 4 to 7 days out of the month. Like, we're not supposed to have something plugged up there 24/7, 365. That ain't good. Like, our girl needs to breathe sometimes. So like, it was just a little bit overkill for me. It was just overkill. So I did take off a little bit of a point for that. I ended up giving this one a 4.5 as well, and I gave it a 4 stars for spice, which brings us to Stolen Touches. I think that this was my favorite book so far. That's really hard to say because I love every single book for different reasons. I love every single character for different reasons. Like, one of my favorite heroes is Mikhail, our scarred hero. There is something about that man. I absolutely love him. But this one is like an arranged forced marriage. There's a 13-year age gap. It's a little bit of enemies to lovers. It follows Salvatore, and I don't know if it's Marley or Marley. I feel like it's Marley, so I'm going to go with that. Salvatore and Marley. It was so good. If it's possible in a 277-page book to have slow burn, it's this one. The Angst. It's here. This was so good. So, Mylene is a part of, who is she? She's sisters with Bianca, who is married to Mikhail. So she understands the whole mafia world. She grew up in the Cosa Nostra with her sister. Her sister married somebody who was in the Bratva, so she understands this world. It's not like it's a big surprise. She leaves Chicago for New York because she doesn't want to be a part of the mafia world anymore, but she also knows that going to New York could get her into trouble because that's where Salvatore is. And Salvatore basically owns all of New York City and demands that anybody who enters his city gets permission, and has been known to send people back in pieces who have not gotten his permission. So for her to ignore this could be a bad thing, but they meet by chance. He is getting checked out for something at a hospital. She works at a hospital. She is a nurse there, and he ends up watching her and becoming completely intrigued and just enamored by her, which is something that Salvatore doesn't do. He has like no feelings. He doesn't give a shit about anything, and he definitely doesn't care about anyone. So for him to care what Mylene is doing is completely just not, it's not in his character to do. So he ends up getting in her way a couple times, and they end up going like on a couple dates, and she really likes him. But something that irritated me but did not hinder my reading of this was she grew up in the mafia world, and not any part of their exchanges did she think, this is a little weird. Even when they get shot at, she never thinks, well, this is like what I grew up in. So, I mean, like, for her to be like that naive, I'm just like, girl. But honestly, it was a one-off thing. She's completely badass through the rest of it. So then Salvatore's like, well, if they're after me, they're going to be after her, and the best way for me to keep tabs on her is to force her to marry me. And she becomes completely pissed when she realizes who he is and the fact that now she has to get married to him, which completely changes their whole dynamic. The chemistry, the tension between these two, she tries not to like him. Like, she completely goes from really being smitten with him to wanting to hate him, but just can't. So there is that there's that tension there, and there is this angsty slow burn as much as you can get, like I said, in a small book. But it was phenomenal. Salvatore is extremely like possessive to like a OCD type way, which could be really off-putting and like really annoying, but for some reason it wasn't. It was good. It was my favorite so far. I am really, really excited for the 7th book that comes out in July. It is As a Story. It's a bodyguard romance. I'm really excited for that one, but so far, this one was my favorite. I can't say enough good things about it. It was just 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up. Name that movie. I gave it 5 stars, and I gave it 3 stars for spice. Next, I read Jessie. This is by HA Huss. It is part of the Bossy Brothers Interconnected series. It's a dual POV. It follows Jessie and Emma. It's a second chance romance, enemies to lovers. There is a revenge plot. There's some family secrets. This one I actually found on Audible. I think it was one of the Audible originals or one of the books that you can listen to for free. So I took a chance, but I was pleasantly surprised with this one. So Emma is out for revenge. Actually, Emma and her 3 best friends are out for revenge on Jessie because Jesse wronged all three of them in like a span of a 1 or 2 week time period. 13 years ago, they were all in Key West. Emma and her family live in Key West, but I think the rest of them were like just vacationing. And Jesse was a bit of a playboy back then. He is a part of a really well-known, massive family, like billionaires. And he has always been kind of like the black sheep bad boy of the group. There are, I think, like 3 brothers. And he came down to Key West to kind of let loose and ends up meeting all 4 of these ladies. And at different times told them basically the same story and promised them a bunch of stuff. And they all had sex. And then he ghosted them. Except for Emma. He met Emma last, and everything that he told Emma, all the promises that he made to Emma, the time that they spent together, they actually meant something to Jesse, but something happened and he had to leave, and he never reached out again. So, like, his bad for sure, but she didn't know that, so he basically ghosted all of them. Well, they all end up at this one, like, restaurant bar and swap stories and realize that they all got played by the same guy, and instead of becoming mean catty bitches, they become friends. They open up a huge cosmetics business, and they're like the top 5 in the world. So now 13 years later, they're millionaires as well, and that is where the revenge plot comes in. Jesse is up for auction at a bachelor auction for like some charity, and Emma and her friends decide that they're going to buy him, they're going to drug him, and they are going to exact a revenge plot on him. But everything does not go to plan. On the way to the kidnapping, Emma and Jesse start talking because Jesse doesn't remember Emma. He remembers like who Emma is, but he does not recognize her. So she's already a little bit bent out of shape for that. But he also starts divulging some information that Emma didn't know about, and it kind of changes her viewpoint on him, and she doesn't necessarily want to go ahead with this revenge plot anymore. There is that. But then there is this thing that completely took me by surprise. There is this huge aspect, like another subplot of this huge family secret that Jesse has going on. And the thing is like Jesse doesn't even understand his family secrets. Like, he's not in the loop either. He's very much in the dark. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really enjoyed learning about that aspect as well while the whole love fest was going on with Jesse and Emma. If I want to continue the series, it follows the remaining brothers as well. We'll see. I don't know. This one, I was up in the air of like a 3.5, 4 stars. I could split it and go with the 3.75, but I think I'm just going to be generous today. I'm going to give it a 4 stars. I'm going to give it a 1 star for spice. And that brings me to my final book of the month, which is You'll Think of Me by Lucia Franco. I cannot believe I haven't read this one yet. So this is Lucia's first book, baby. If I didn't know that this was a Lucia Franco book, I don't know if I would label it as such, because it's definitely, you reading the Off Balance series, reading Hush Hush and Say Yes and a couple of her other books, they don't read like that. We know her as this spicy, taboo, just yumminess. And there was that sprinkled in here. It wasn't to the level that we have come accustomed, if that makes sense, but it was still super yummy. One thing I definitely didn't like was it was third person. I'm just not a fan of that. First person or nothing. But it was her first book, so we'll give her a little bit of leniency there. It's a second chance romance, small town romance. It follows Luke and Olivia. They've been best friends for many, many, many years, but it's like she kind of opened her eyes and realized what was in front of her around college time. They dated throughout college, and Olivia is basically it for Luke. Like, that's my life. This is what it's gonna be like. I got my girl. That's it. However, Olivia wants more out of life. She wants to know that she can do things on her own and provide for herself without the help of anybody else, and wants to be that independent, wants to see life outside of the small town that they live in Georgia, and has applied to medical school in New York. Kind of sneaky. Like, she is a little bit sneaky about it. She doesn't tell Luke about it, so when she finally does tell Luke, he kind of hits the fan over it, because, like, why are you lying to me? Instead of just saying, yo, this is, you know, our life is together, but he also doesn't handle it the best either. Instead of going with her or trying a long distance relationship, he basically is like, it's all or nothing. It's me or nothing. And even though she tries to reach out and keep in touch, he basically ghosts her. But it is very important for her to do this, so she does end up going. And now it's about 9 years later, and she's done what she set out to do. She has become a neurologist. She's got a career. She is very happy with her life, but she misses her hometown, and she's ready to move back to Georgia and place down roots. In the meantime, Luke has not been sitting still either. In the past 9 years, he has become this really big country star and is, you know, pretty famous now. But he did build a home where they used to live and does come home frequently, and they start bumping into each other, and it's very much hot and cold with them. They each want each other, but they don't. It's very flip-floppy. 1 minute they want one another, and the next minute they don't, and they also don't want each other at the same time the other wants each other. So there is a little bit of like back and forth with that. Also, there was a little aspect of like a love triangle, third wheel kind of thing, which, if I'm being honest, I saw going a completely different way, but that didn't pan out, and then it didn't make sense at the end, and it wasn't cohesive, if that makes sense. Like you take these, cohesive. This, not so much, but it was still good. I liked all the parts. Just some parts were a little scattered. It is Lucia, so I think for that I gave it an extra point. Definitely took off a point for it being a third person and some of the wonkiness, but it's like one of my favorite authors, so, you know, it is what it is. I gave this one a 4 stars, and I gave it a 2 stars for spice. And that wraps up June. Those are my 8 books for the end of the month. If you are interested in what I read for the first half of the month, those 9 books are over on my mid-month wrap-up. Like I said, it is down below. We are going to go ahead and do my monthly stat wrap-up thing. I need to figure out what to call that, but that's for another time. Also, because I had so many books, I'm not going to talk about the books that I want to read in July. I will do a completely separate video for that and have a July TBR video up for you guys later. But let's do my little wrap-up stat thing that I will come up with a name for later. My favorites for June: Mercy by Sarah Kate, Twisted Vines by January James, Stolen Touches by Neva Altaj, Reckless by Elsie Silver, and Keep Her Safe by QB Tyler. My most surprising read is Jessie by HA Huss. That whole backstory with the family dynamic and the secrets and like, what is this? Is it a cult or a militia, or like, what the hell is going on? That was really interesting. Definitely took me by surprise. And my biggest letdown for the month is going to have to be Pen Pal. I think it was like, honestly, the only book that was below a 4 stars for this month. So there you have it. Yeah, that's it, guys. I can't believe I got through that. I can't believe I read 17 books this month. What a feat. I don't expect to do that again in July, but you never know. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me your favorite book of June. Tell me what book you hated in June. Just tell me something. Give me something down below. Even if it's just a cute little emoji, leave me something down below, and I will catch you guys next time. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and we'll continue to do whatever it is that we're doing right here. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.